Hello, apa khabar? Once again, welcome to Virtually Peranakan Fest 2022, celebrating our colourful culture. This is our third edition of this online Peranakan Festival organized by Peranakan Sayang, and we are very happy to see all of you, our Sayangs, from around the world. Kamsia very much for joining us. Please say hello and tell us where you are watching this from in the comments section. We would love to hear from you. My name once again is Alvin Un, and it's a pleasure to host this session. And for this session, I do have a very special co-host who is joining me all the way from Malacca. And we have Baba Cedric. Ba?
Good afternoon. Selamat tengah hari semua. Dah minum teh belum? Cedric here speaking. And thank you very much to Alvin for inviting me over to co-host the event. Very, very honored. I feel so happy to meet so many familiar faces here too.
I know.
But you are now in Malacca, and we have our presenter who's also from Malacca. Kawan lama kah?
I think one shout away, they say, satu selaung, Malacca is so small, everywhere you go, you turn around, you bump into them.
Can you tell us a bit about her?
All right. Our next presenter hails from a very illustrious family in town. She is a descendant of the Kapitan Chua and she is also very active in the history scene in Malacca town, an avid historian, and she has been involved in the restoration of the Cheng Munting Temple, the oldest temple in Malaysia. She sits in the as one of the advisory team, and having been an advisor in the restoration team, she now sits in the advisory board of the Cheng Munting Temple too. So it is my pleasure to call upon Nyonya Josephine Chua from Malacca.
Hello,
Hi, Jo.
Nyonya.
Hello, how's everybody?
Wow, what an illustrious background and great introduction by Baba Cedric. So, Joe, please tell us what is your presentation today all about?
Well, basically it's very personal. It's about how I actually found out that I was Peranakan and what's the difference between being a Peranakan and a Chinese. Thank you, Elvin, and good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, thanks for giving your afternoon nap. Sorry, but could you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, right. Great. Thank you. So, to start, gua mau kasih kamsia banyak-banyak sama organizer hari ini kerana cia gua bicara di sini. Kamsia juga semua yang akan datang buat lagi laujat hari ini. Mari kita cerita panjang-panjang, lebih-lebih, ya. So, something from my son Daniel about our roots. The root of things is heaven, and the roots of man is his ancestor. I actually, like most convent girls, grew up in like most girls during my era, grew up in the convent school. So go start skip. So this is the Sacred Heart Canossian Mission, also known as the Portuguese Convent, and it had its humble beginnings in the house of a philanthropist in Trankera. It was called the Trankera English Girls' School. And then they moved on to Bandar-Hile. This is my class picture, I think in the early 1960s. Now, as a kid growing up, we never questioned about our identity, whether we are Chinese or Malay or anything, So much has been said about who the Peranakans are. So I just want to share a story before I get on here, that when I was in primary 3, my teacher asked us are you Malay, Chinese, or Indian, to mark into the register? And I say, I'm Baba. And she says, there's no such category. And she's asked me again, so what are you? I say, I'm Peranakan. And she says, don't have also. So, which one are you? Then I said Malay. Because that's what we spoke at home, right? The teacher reported to my mom, he said, your daughter says she's Malay. But it didn't make any difference because we didn't have uh, separations on race or anything during that time. But I felt a little different from my Chinese classmates because I felt downright royal. So let's get to this royal bit. Huh? So much has been said about the beginnings of the early Chinese community. And the popular story is that the the marriage between a lady from China and the Sultan, right? And many commented that this was the beginning of the Peranakan community. So I beg to differ. And my favorite my favorite, how do I say, quote is that, Uncle Kim Lei, who is a relative also, he asked the Chinese press when they were asking about whether we are Chinese or not. He asked this, orang Cina bukan Cina kah? So we have Tan Chi Bing, Professor Tan Chi Bing, giving us a very clear definition about whether we are whether we are into the culture or have we assimilated into something. So acculturation means to borrow certain cultural elements and then it is like a mix and match thing. Whereas assimilation means that we have totally absorbed another cultural group's, everything into another cultural group. So now I come back to Baba Uncle Kim Lei's question. Aren't we Chinese after all? So let me just share with you all the similarities that we have. Here we have you. If you see the reach of the house, you can see that this is the same kind of reach that we have in the Chingunting in temple in Malacca. So this is what we have defined as the Southern Chinese architecture. And you see that it is replicated into our buildings in Malacca. In fact, if we open our eyes as we move around Malacca, you will see that it is there's a lot of that, right? So, and into the decorative elements, this is my Chua ancestral temple in Fujian. And if you look at all these panelings and all these lovely decorations here, and then we compare it with the Chengunting in Malacca. So you do see the similarity, which means that we have all this while preserve the Chineseness in the things that we do, the places that we stay in. And here, from the internet, sorry, from the internet, I got a picture of a sedan chair. And then Cedric will be very familiar with this, the sedan chair in the, not this one, of course, in the Chengunting temple, similar with similar features. Our lanterns, which were hang outside the houses on auspicious occasions like what do you call that? The Chinese New Year, a birthday, or during wedding. We will hang all these lovely lanterns outside our house, and it will bear the Chinese characters, which shows the family name on one side of it. And this is my grandfather, this one here, on the left. And you will see the headgear It's very similar to this headgear of this man here. This is a Qing dynasty official. Okay. And the hair is styled similar to China. Now, my great grandfather on the left and my great great grandfather on the left and my grandfather on the right both have this like ball looking place, but it is actually uh, the Qing dynasty style, and you don't see the hair because it's all tied up and braided at the back. Like this one here. Okay. So on Heron Street, the houses along Heron Street bear all the Chinese characters above the main doors and on the doors itself and on the window panes. So most Chinese families, early Chinese families that is, will have a chukpu or what you call a family book. In my family, only from the sixth generation onwards, that is from my grandfather, did the education change to the English medium. Hence, we see the emergence of the written Baba Malay language due to this change in the education uh, system. So here we have uh, the written Baba Malay. You can see on the top left, that's a cham or a divination sheet taken from Chengunting, or what the local call the Kebun Datuk. So my grandpa, of course, could not read Chinese anymore, but he was very not superstitious, but he was a firm believer in faith, and he would always go to the temple to ask if the name chosen for the child is okay or not, and then they will do this thing called puak pui with the kidney stone wooden blocks that a lot of temples carry, and he will also consult the divination sticks to ask about whatever situation. So here we have written by him, his copy. Uh, and the things frequently asked would be whether the pregnant woman is safe, or whether it will be a boy or a girl. And as David has said earlier on, that is very important for the families, all Chinese families, to have boys to continue the name, and whether it's a auspicious day to open um, a business and all that. So he wrote 60 translations of this. Also, we see the beginning of the pantoons or poems written by the Baba in the Malay language. And this is a sample of it. However, the interest in things Chinese still live on. My grandfather, I found among his collection of things this book, Cantonese Made Easy, where they had what do you call that, marches, and the marches actually were all from Hong Kong, and they speak Cantonese. And my dad says that the marche will always bring them to see the Chinese opera shows in the temple that's actually played for the deities. And of course, they will naturally understand some Cantonese. But I think my grandfather was quite keen to know more. That's why he had books like this. Right. So I don't know if our babas have ever encountered these people calling you banana. I have been going bananas, being called one, by the mainstream Mandarin speaking Chinese. In 1984, an incident in Malacca led to a discovery of who I am. Now, when they wanted to dig up Bukit China, my dad told me that actually we have an ancestor. He was a Capitan China. And he told me, if you want to know more, write to your Auntie Jane in Hong Kong. So this is an extract from her letter. And she tells us of how great our ancestor has been, and how upright he is, and things like that, and how loved he is by the community and the family. Right. So then I start asking my mother, so if Captain is from China, how am I Peranakan? And I didn't know the meaning of the word Peranakan, neither did she, that, it meant locally born Chinese. So I said, how then am I a Baba? Then she says, I don't know, So, of course, decades after that, I found out that actually we are the early Chinese, and due to our servants then being called, calling the master of the house Baba, Baba Yaba, and all that. In the workers, I think a lot of them from Indonesia will call the mistress of the house boleh nya, ya nya, so we are more Baba Nyonyas already. So my ancestor came in 1769, okay, and he was born in 1960. He came in 1969 from, sorry, 1769. Sorry, thanks, boy, to Malacca, and from there we started this family tree, which comprised of three main lineages from Capitan Chua Suchong, the seventh, sixth generation, married into the Chi family, and her mother was from the Tan Tock Seng line. Tan Tock Seng, Chiam Chuan, and Chua Suchong are all from Malacca. So my ancestor was actually very much like as my auntie say, and back in 1801, to recognize his contribution to the community, they gave him this memorial, so that when he is no longer around, people will still remember him. So this is placed in the temple at Bukit China, on the left side bay, and many people will come and pay respect because they really don't know who, but they just pay their respects anyway. So he's never forgotten. And on the right, I need to qualify this picture that has been going around, because this picture was given by a relative, right? And the relative said that this is the picture of my ancestor. But he died in 1801. Photography wasn't out yet. And this very much looks like a photograph. So this is in our family. So it's definitely a family member. It could be the one of his sons, Chua Chong Kiet, from which line I came from, because on Chua Chong Kiet's tomb it said waiting, what do you call it? Waiting for a title. So what we see here actually is a Mandarin suit. This man is dressed in a Mandarin suit with the beads and all that. So if you notice one of my earlier pictures, you will see a similar suit. And in front there is what we have, a Mandarin square. It will depict the pangkat of the title, like whether you're a Datuk, Datuk Sri, whether you're a Tun, things like that. Right. So the Malacca Historical Society also recognizes that he has contributed to the Chinese. When here he mentioned in the repair of the temple. So in 1795, after witnessing, he says, so many years, like 60 years that has before him, that prayers could not be carried out properly because of wind and the rain hampering the prayers. The way the Chinese pray it with the joss sticks and the joss paper, it will just blow off, and the light will just go off, and you can't pray properly. The wind will just blow all the joss paper away. So he felt that such a beautiful memorial, this cannot continue properly. It makes him very sad, and that's what was said on this tablet. And the reason for building Po Santing on Bukit China, it has really nothing to do with the Emperor Ching Ho at all. Okay, and in 1802, in this tablet, it says that the temple was in quite a dilapidated state, and therefore he took upon himself to start with the repairing of rebuilding of the temple, which is the Cheng Mun Ting. Then on the right hand side, thanks to my friend uh, Dr. Lim Gek Siang, she helped me take this photograph, which is in the Kuan Yin Temple in Penang. So in 1802, he also paid like 170 yuan towards the setting up of this temple. Now, all the descendants and a lot of the Chinese community who know of Captain Chua's contribution were very, very shocked at this news of the quietly, how shall I say, digging into bulldozing his tomb, as you can see on the news clip on the left. And on the right, in when he built the Po Santing, he also contributed two of the houses uh, that you see on the news clip. It is now Calente Cafe. Um, and the rents from this will go towards the maintenance of the temple at Bukit China. So, continuing with marriage lines, Chiam Chuan is, I think, 3 times great grandfather to me, and Tan Tock Seng is a 2 times great grandfather to my family, right? So I should say, family matters. Mak Engkong, these photographs were taken by my grandfather himself. He takes a lot of self-portraits also. My grandmother on the left in her baju panjang. And the family has grown. During the Chinese New Year, we will often visit our elders. And this is one of the visits to the residence of Tan Chien in Klebang. My aunties and me and my cousins, we were all dressed up, all dressed up for these visits. So you can see them in their kebayas and all that. And by the way, my first and my second auntie, they are all, they do kebaya embroideries as their part-time. And here is again the front entrance of the Tan Chien house with, I think I should call him uh, something, what kong, grand uncle anyway, Yo Jui T. And I should say that it's why I say family matters is that when you have the matriarch, the old lady or the patriarch of the family, we tend to always gather. And when they are gone, we always have an excuse or other not to have time for each other anymore. So very fortunately, my grandmother, whenever she has a birthday, all the daughters and daughters-in-law will definitely come and celebrate it with her. So I would like to give you a glimpse of what happens in Malacca. How they do that. They have their pastimes. So this is Ung Kong. He's a jack of all trades. Let me tell you, he never worked because they had the family money, and he never had to work for his living. So he indulged in a lot of uh, hobbies like playing many, many musical instruments. He does a lot of writing, and he does carpentry. He takes lots of photographs. He hunts. he bakes too. And all in the old days when we don't have supermarkets and all that, they actually have catalogs from London, and everything from the hair perming colors right to the baking tins, and even grinding the meat grinders, everything was ordered from England. Right. So he's also very influenced by the British around him, uh, designing his own monograms and having seals. So his books will all bear this chalk. Right. And the afternoon delight. Cedric's very good with this one. I'm still trying to learn this. My grand aunt, Mrs. Chi, on the left, having very good time with the family. It's a very healthy way of spending time, and it keeps everyone, sane. So, but we are in the time in the where we are changing very fast with social medias and whatnots. And how do we get people interested, and how do we make sure that memories are constantly created so that we never forget, where we come from, who we are, and why we should always remember the past, because without the roots, the tree will fall. So, one very good example to do this, an initiative which my very good friend, and my Chigi-san says ASP Lim, she's actually Audrey Lim Swee she has taken this brave step of writing the memoirs of her father, Mr. Lim Keng Huat. And Lim Keng Huat has a huge collection of things that really tells us about what Malacca was before. Another way is to have little events like this, which was carried out in the Macau Gallery, Malacca, by the with a lot of foresight, Esther Tan, who hosted this event in the gallery. We have Rajan, a very dear friend. He's a Peranakan Indian, Chiti Malacca, we call them. And this is his grandmother's baju panjang. And he's showing my son Daniel how to put on this croissant, which is different from the modern croissants that we have nowadays. So my son presented this little talk on apparels. So he covered the clothings of the Chiti Malacca, the Indian Peranakans, the Eurasian, the Saranis, and also our Peranakan China. So it is very important to know who we are, as I said earlier on, and to know our legacy, and to recognize that we need to carry on to the next generation. But most importantly, we need to practice it so that it is never forgotten. So during looking through my family book, Daniel, my son, found the prayers of the rites that is to be carried out on the first day of the 12th lunar month. You're supposed to recite these words, in front of the Sinchus. Is that correct? Yeah. And here you can see that we did it on the winter solstice. So perhaps we deviate a little bit, but anyway, I think the practice was important. So in front here, you will see what I was saying, the divination blocks, the wooden blocks. And we have to ask whether you have eaten, to invite them to eat, whether you have eaten the kuih yi and whether they have finished eating before we can pack up. Right, so may our traditions never ever die. During the, what do you call it, during our Chinese, during the Chinese New Year, during the, sorry, the next one, during during the birthdays, we will always soja our elders, and we will wish them panjang-panjang umur, right? So the Peranakan children are taught to pay respect to their elders at a very young age. During the Chinese New Year's and all those occasions, we would do the soja. This is what you see the little boy there doing, and to wish all the elders a long life. And thank you again to my son for this. Dari Malacca, Pi Panglima Perang, naik kapal 10 hari. Apa guna kaya dari orang kalau tak kenal adat dan budi? And with this, thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. Yeah, that was so rich and so much history about your family, and of course related to the Peranakan culture itself. Before Cedric asks you a few questions, he has some things to share or ask you. I'd like to say hi to everybody from around the region, from Singapore, Malacca, Penang, from Selangor, from Kuala Lumpur, from Japan, and Allah, we have a guest as far as from Alaska. Jauh, say. Yeah, it's such a wonderful thing for all our Baba Nyonyas from all reaches around the world to reconnect with the culture. I'm sure it is a very warm feeling for them to reconnect back with our heritage, which is so important. So thank you very much for joining. Ba Cedric?
Yes, thank you, by Alvin. Yeah, Nyonya Jo has been a very long family friend. So just to say hello back to her. And I would like to ask her a few questions. Yeah, probably it's not so much of me asking you something that I don't know, but I think it's good that you also share what you know, what you have done, so that we can learn, yeah, from what you have done. I understand that you were very active in the restoration of the Chingmunting Temple. Can you tell us, perhaps you share with all of us, what made you, to roll up your sleeves and to get your hands involved into the restoration work?
Yeah, it's something that needs to be done, right? I think it's all faith. My dad was a general manager then, as you know, and then they saw that it was quite dilapidated. The chenyan, the cut and paste works were all like already looking very old and tired and all that. So we thought we need to refurbish the temple. That's how it started. And during our negotiations with the Penang architect to do this, one beam actually gave way from the termite infestation and all that. And of course, finding out that my ancestor had something to do with what we see right now gave me more incentive to make sure that everything is done as close as possible to what it looked like then, so that I actually can get a glimpse into the past. So when it's properly restored, and I can very proudly stand back and look and say, oh, this is what my chokong has done. And of course, when we do something like this, we hope to also encourage everybody else, to see that restoration is good, And you, Cedric, you did a wonderful job with your house. So I'm glad that, there are people like you, Cedric, people like our friend Serge Jardine, who also restored his home, and several examples. And then, of course, it went on with Badan Warisan, who actually asked the Chingmunting Temple for permission to use one of their premises as a pilot restoration project.
And we also won an award, the UNESCO award, for one of the examples of fine restoration work.
Yes,
yeah,
that we did.
so,
Yes.
So I think that gives us more impetus to make sure that we are doing the right job in restoring rather than renovating.
Exactly right. Yes.
Yeah, sometimes I think we want to take the easy way out, yeah, but it may cost a little bit more. But then looking at the impact and the result of restoration versus renovation, I think we can always look back and we can pat our backs and say, oh, we have done a good job, and this is exactly what our ancestors or our elders would want whenever something's like this happen.
Yeah,
Yes,
may
that's
I
all.
also add? Yeah, sorry.
Yes.
May I
Sorry,
also
go
add?
ahead.
Yeah, thanks. That it has been a very good learning journey for all of us involved in the restoration. In that, we learn why we should use lime plaster and not cement. And why we should use lime wash instead of acrylic paint, things like that, and how to continue the preservation of the building. Yeah, sorry, Elvin.
No, I was
Back to
just
you.
commenting that it's wonderful to know that across the region, there's a lot of efforts to keep the cultural, especially the architecture and all that, to be put back to what it was before. And it's a conscious effort. That means there's a lot of people who appreciate the culture and our heritage. So that's a great movement altogether.
Yes.
Anyone has any questions out there? But while waiting for, okay, there's one there.
Yeah.
By
What language?
Yeo Bun Sung.
Yao Bun Sung. What language does he
Yes.
use to recite the ancestral script in that temple?
Well, was it maybe my son should answer this.
Yeah. Let's
Yes,
let's bring
come
him
in.
in. Come in.
Good
to see you.
Who are we waiting on? Daniel?
Hi, hello.
Hello.
Daniel?
So actually, in the past, when it was actually written, which was, sorry, I can't see me. Okay, which was back in the late 1800s. It would most likely have been recited in Hokkien, because as I'm sure, most people are aware, the majority of the Peranakan Chinese in Malacca were Hokkiens, especially from Changzhou or Changqiu, as we call it in Hokkien lah. So of course, perhaps the authentic or most traditional way would be to recite it with the Hokkien intonation. However, due to my poor proficiency in Hokkien these days, generally speaking, also among the young, so I was actually reciting it in Mandarin. But I think what's more important is that of course, it would probably rhyme much better in Hokkien because I think it does. But I think it's a thought that counts, basically. So I mean, perhaps something to work towards, bettering my Hokkien as well. But yeah, so to answer your question, I recited it in Mandarin. Thank you.
Thank you for that sharing. Very nice to know that the younger generation is taking interest in our culture and how such activities brings back lost memories of people's early childhood. And when it sparks your memories, I hope it goes into your practices and to revive your interest in the culture so that we can keep our culture going. So do we have any other questions? Please do share with us. Cedric, do you have any other questions?
While waiting for questions to roll along, maybe I would like to ask Nyonya Josephine, since Daniel is around, as a mother, what would you like to inculcate in him and maybe sort of transfer or share with him so that he will continue to carry on, not say living as a Baba, but I mean at least that he appreciates and understands more about the Peranakan culture.
Right. With you as a very good example, role model.
Role model or rolling down?
Sweating hard already. Profusely.
Yeah.
Rolling in the culture.
Yeah, so Celia also agrees that Baba Daniel, it's good to know that he is also passionate about our history and our heritage. So thank you very much for that, Celia.
Yes, Nyonya Josephine, back to you. How would you, I mean, as a mother, what would you do further, so that he will continue to appreciate whatever you have probably experienced and also learned?
Well, I keep on reminding him, and the good thing is I don't have to do very much of that because he himself is interested in our culture. You see, and no, and being able to read Chinese, even though he was a totally English educated fella, has actually helped him understand more because then he could read into our family books and know the stories behind our ancestors. You see, so I'm getting him to bit by bit translate so that his Chinese illiterate mother could understand what was written there. And also, if he gets married in future, hopefully his wife learns to how it is like to be in a Nyonya household. You don't have to be a Nyonya. You know, you can practice, and practice makes perfect, you see. So I think, like me, I'm a Nyonya, but I don't practice so much, so he doesn't get very good Peranakan food from me. And it was all because I took for granted. This is always the sad part. We always think like our aunties, you know, our they will live forever, and we will have endless good food on the table every Chinese New Year. That took panjang thing, you know. And now that I try to do one or two, and I just ask again, how did my auntie, just the two of them, ever manage to cook more than 9 dishes at every one time, you know, for the whole lot of lazy babas and nyonyas, you know, from the old to the very young.
So Celia has a question. Are there any suggestions as to how to get the younger generations to start wanting to know more? How can we make the old traditions more modern and hype so that they want to become more involved? Well, for me, one of the ways is to reach out, and using social media, and what we are doing right now is to reach out to as many people as possible and to make it accessible to the youth of today. Because if we don't do that and just keep it to ourselves, I think it will be lost as the generations go by. So we as a community need to all come together to perpetuate or to share as much as we can while we can. So I think that is critical. What do you guys think?
Cedric?
I think outreach is very important. We should not expect people to come knocking on our doors. We should be more proactive in reaching out and sharing. Many times we always take outreach job as for granted, that people, since we are known, people will definitely find us. All the facts on internet and blah 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 blah. But nothing beats when you actually you get to hands-on experience whatever culture, rather than a textbook sort theoretical approach to just culture. Yeah, but when you go out and do certain things, you join them, you interact with them, I think that's where you develop that interest in them.
Well, I think one very popular thing that is happening is replicating our food and our dressing. You see, so they say, that to keep the memory going, so the kabayas will never die because it's a craze now to have a kabaya, and the Nyonya food will never die because whether they are really serving betul-betul punya Nyonya food, real Nyonya food or not, they still use the title and then it sells, right? So, yeah. And then we have people like Matt Tan in Singapore, and we have Florence and Debbie promoting the cuisine extensively. So that's one way to do it. And if to know something is to love something. So if they really love our Peranakan food, whether you are Peranakan or not, you can still learn to cook the dish, and then that dish will never die. So that's why I'm ever willing to share my only thing that I could do properly, which is the nasi kemuli, Cedric.
Yum, I tried that.
And if anyone asks me the recipe, I'm ever willing to share that. Yeah. So
okay,
that,
I think we've run out of time, unfortunately.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. There's so many questions coming in, but I thought I'd just end with this one, which is a totally different topic altogether. can we elaborate about the Nyonya kueh? I think it takes forever. But I'm going to give this chance to Cedric to show his kueh. No, he
Right.
ate all already. Alamak.
He ate all of
Okay.
it.
I ate
So-
half.
You see? Ada lah kau ada kueh-kueh tengok.
Ada lagi, undi.
Okay, thank you so much, Nyajo, for your sharing. It's really, really wonderful to have you on our festival. I think a lot of us benefited from your sharing. And of course, my fellow co-host Cedric comes here very much to show your kueh. Thank you very much.
Come back to Malacca and then you get another.
Okay, folks. It's time for us
Right.
to move on. We certainly hope that you enjoyed that session, at that presentation. Please join us for the next session, The Cosmopolitan Musical World of the Peranakans by Rachel Ong. This is happening in a very short while at 5 p.m. So please go to that link. This has been Virtually Peranakan Fest 2022, celebrating our colorful culture, organized by Peranakan Sayang. My name is Alvin Un. We will see you soon. Take care, everybody.